Jamie Dimon just sold $141 million worth of JPMorgan stock. In 18 years running the largest bank in America, he had never sold a single share, not one, until now. That alone would be the story. It's not. 3 days later, Dimon released his annual shareholder letter, 48 pages, the most alarming tone he has ever published. He calls inflation the skunk at the party. He defends the U.S. war on Iran. He warns markets are dangerously mispricing risk across every major asset class on the board. Most analysts covered the letter. A few covered the sale. Almost no one connected them. Here's what you need to understand. What Dimon did with his own stock tells you more about where this economy is heading than anything in that 48-page letter. And the timing is the part nobody is talking about. Stick with me for the next few minutes. I'll show you the pattern, what it means for your wallet, and the one signal mainstream coverage has completely missed. Because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly what he's positioning for. To understand why this moment is different, you have to see the pattern Dimon has been building for 4 years. 2022, Ukraine invasion. Dimon warns of a restructuring of the global order. Markets brushed it off. 2023, Silicon Valley Bank collapses in 72 hours. Dimon writes that the consequences will be felt for years. Most people had moved on within a month. 2024, his letter warns U.S. interest rates could hit 8%, stickier inflation, unprecedented liquidity drains. Wall Street called him too cautious. 2025, tariff shock. Dimon raises JPMorgan's recession probability from 40% to 60%. Not a prediction, a repositioning. And now 2026, active wartime framing. Iran, oil, nuclear proliferation called the gravest threat to the future of mankind. This is not the same Dimon who wrote those earlier letters. Every year the tone has darkened. Every year the warnings have compounded. 4 consecutive letters, each one more serious than the last. That is a pattern, and patterns in banking are never accidents. Quick pause. If you're following the logic, hit that subscribe button. This is the kind of analysis the channel runs every week. Here's the part most people are missing. Every previous letter was a warning about something happening outside the bank. This one is different. The difference is something no one in mainstream media has connected to the stock sale. Here's what actually happened, step by step. Dimon's stock sale was not impulsive. It was filed as a 10b5-1 plan, a pre-scheduled legal trading arrangement that insiders used to sell shares without accusations of timing the market. JPMorgan's PR team called it diversification and tax planning. Clean, routine, nothing to see. Then came the letter 3 days later, 48 pages, the sobering tone, the war framing, the skunk at the party, and the media covered them as 2 separate stories. But this is where the story changes. Look at when Dimon filed that 10b5-1 plan. Not last month, not last quarter. He filed it in late 2023, when JPMorgan shares were trading around $140. Today, those shares trade above $240. He did not diversify at $140. He waited. He diversified at the top. That is not tax planning. That is a timing decision disguised as a structural filing. And here's where it gets serious. A 10b5-1 plan filed 12 months before execution is the maximum legal lead time under SEC rules. Dimon did not file 30 days out. He did not file 90 days out. He filed at the outer boundary, which means his personal risk assessment shifted long before the Iran war, long before the tariff shock, long before the letter was even drafted. The letter is the public version of a decision that was already made in private. Think about that for a second. I'll show you what it points to next. Here's why this matters beyond one CEO and one bank. JPMorgan is not just a bank. It is the single largest financial institution in the Western Hemisphere. It holds over $4 trillion in assets. It clears a significant portion of the global dollar settlement system. When JPMorgan repositions, the entire financial architecture feels it within weeks. And Dimon is not just a CEO. He is the one banker who survived 2008 without a bailout, the one who bought Bear Stearns in a weekend, the one the Treasury Department calls when a regional bank is about to fail. When he shifts his personal exposure, it is not a personal decision. It is a structural read on where the system is heading. Now layer in the letter's actual content. 3 specific warnings that matter. First, private credit. Dimon said losses in leveraged lending are already outpacing what current conditions should produce. That means stress is building inside the shadow banking system before it shows up in official data. Second, Basel III capital rules. Dimon called them frankly nonsensical. JPMorgan is being forced to hold up to 50% more capital per loan than smaller banks. That tightens credit for consumers and businesses, right as the economy is already slowing. Third, the Iran framing. He did not cover it as a political event. He covered it as an energy supply chain disruption. That is the language of someone preparing for a commodity shock, not commenting on foreign policy. Drop a comment below. Which of those three worries you most? Genuinely curious where this audience lands. 3 structural warnings, 1 CEO stock sale, all pointing in the same direction. Here's what that direction actually is. Next section. Here is what Dimon is actually thinking, not what he wrote, what the pattern tells you. He is not predicting a crash. He is repositioning for a regime change. Those are different things, and the distinction matters. A crash is a fast event. Markets drop, liquidity freezes. Central banks intervene. Within 12 to 18 months, the system stabilizes. Everyone who holds through it recovers. That is 2008. That is March 2020. A regime change is slower and more dangerous. It is when the underlying rules of the system shift, when inflation stops behaving the way it used to, when interest rates stop returning to zero, when the dollar's dominance in global trade starts to erode at the edges. That is what Dimon's language actually describes: stickier inflation, higher for longer, structural supply chain shifts, the restructuring of the global order. Those are not crisis words, those are regime words. And here is the part that connects to the stock sale. In a crash, cash is king. You hold dollars, you wait, you redeploy. In a regime change, cash is the worst place to be. Your purchasing power erodes quietly, year after year, while asset prices reset to a new equilibrium. So why would Dimon sell $141 million of JPMorgan stock? Because he is not moving into cash. He is diversifying out of a single concentrated position and into a broader mix of real assets, global exposure, and hard asset alternatives. That is the playbook of someone who expects the next decade to look nothing like the last one. This is the part most analysts are missing. The trade is not bearish on JPMorgan. The trade is bearish on the old rules. And that changes everything about how you read the letter. Like the video if this analysis is landing, it tells YouTube to push this kind of breakdown to more people. But the other side tells a different story, and it's a strong one. You should hear it out. The bull case on JPMorgan is genuinely impressive. The bank just posted record revenue for the 8th consecutive year, $57 billion in net income. Dimon's own pay package climbed 10.3% to $43 million, the first time any big bank CEO crossed that line without a one-time bonus. If the system were truly fragile, the board would not be paying him like that. JPMorgan's capital ratios are the strongest in its history. Its trading desk is dominant. Its consumer franchise is growing. Its blockchain division is expanding into stablecoins and tokenized payments. By every conventional metric, this is the best-run financial institution in the world, and Dimon is still running it. The counterargument goes further. A $141 million sale against a family holding of roughly 8.6 million shares is barely 7% of his position. That is not an exit. That is a rebalancing. CEOs diversify all the time. Reading a crisis into it is pattern matching gone too far. Take it seriously. That case is real. Here is where the gap opens. The bull case explains the bank. It does not explain the letter. You do not write a 48-page document warning about nuclear proliferation, sticky inflation, private credit erosion, and the restructuring of global trade if you think the next 5 years look like the last 5. Strong fundamentals and a wartime tone shareholder letter are not the same message. One of them is wrong. And there is the second gap. Dimon opened this year's letter with America's 250th anniversary. Patriotic framing. Freedom, liberty, and opportunity. No JPMorgan CEO has opened a shareholder letter that way in 3 decades. That is not sentiment. That is brand insurance. You only lead with, "I love this country," when you are about to tell it something it does not want to hear. That is the signal the bull case cannot explain away. And it leads directly into what this means for you. Let me make this personal, because this is the part that actually reaches your wallet. 3 specific mechanisms, 3 real numbers. Mechanism 1. Your mortgage and your rent. If Dimon is right that inflation stays, quote, stickier than markets expect, the Fed cannot cut rates the way Wall Street is pricing in. That keeps the 30-year mortgage above 7% deep into 2027. On a $400,000 home, that is roughly $400 more per month than the same loan would have cost in 2021. Over a 30-year term, that is $144,000 of extra interest out of your pocket into the banking system. Rents follow the same curve with a 6-month lag because landlords reprice to match their own borrowing costs. Mechanism 2, your grocery bill. Dimon explicitly named commodity supply chains through the Strait of Hormuz. When oil moves above $90, transportation costs rise within 72 hours. Food prices follow within 2 weeks. That is not theory. That is the documented timeline from the 1973 embargo, the 2008 spike, and the 2022 Ukraine shock. Every single one. If the Iran disruption extends through the summer, you will feel it at the checkout before Labor Day. Mechanism 3, your credit. This is the one almost no one is watching. Dimon said private credit losses are already accelerating. When that stress spreads into regional banks, and it always does, small business loans tighten, auto loan approvals drop, HELOCs get pulled, and credit card limits get quietly reduced. All within 90 days of a cycle turn. If you are planning to refinance, borrow, or open a business line in the next year, that window may be closing faster than the headlines suggest. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Seriously, if one person you know is about to make a major financial decision in the next 90 days, send them this video. It might change their timing. None of this is speculation. Every mechanism has a historical trigger point, and Dimon just told us where he thinks we are on that timeline. The prediction comes next. 2 scenarios, both credible. The probabilities matter. Scenario A, the Dimon floor. Roughly 55% probability. Iran tensions de-escalate within the next 90 days. Oil pulls back below $80. The Fed holds rates steady through the summer and signals modest cuts into late 2026. Private credit stress stays contained within the non-bank sector. JPMorgan keeps posting record numbers. Dimon's stock sale ages into what JPMorgan PR always said it was, prudent diversification at peak valuation. The regime change Dimon hinted at happens slowly, over years, not months. Most viewers feel nothing dramatic. Costs grind higher. Borrowing stays expensive. Life continues. Scenario B, the skunk arrives. Roughly 45% probability. Iran disruption extends past Q3 2026. Oil breaks $100 and holds. Private credit losses migrate into regional banks by the end of the year. The Fed is forced to pause cuts, or reverse them. Mortgage rates climb back toward 8%. Grocery inflation re-accelerates. Credit tightens across the consumer economy within 2 quarters. The institutions that repositioned quietly in 2024 are proven right. Retail investors find out 12 to 14 months after the professionals have already moved. That is the historical gap in every cycle on record. Here is the part that resolves the entire video. Dimon filed his 10b5-1 plan in early 2024. The standard institutional to public awareness gap runs 9 to 14 months. Do the math. If he is right, the public catch-up window is not years away. It is happening right now, in real time, as you are watching this. That is what he positioned for. That is what the letter was preparing the public to hear. That is what the stock sale actually means. Nobody rings a bell at the top, but sometimes, if you are paying attention, somebody files a form. If this analysis changed how you see the next 12 months, subscribe. The channel runs this level of breakdown every week on the stories mainstream media is not connecting. The most powerful signal on Wall Street is not what the CEO says. It is what he does with his own money 12 months before anyone is paying attention. You are paying attention now.